story that, yeah, it almost felt like you had to end this episode with the return of Superman.
We needed to be reminded that we're watching a Superman series and there's going to be some optimism eventually, because it was not that I'm complaining. I understand what they were doing. But ultimately, the reason why I was okay, and as I said a moment ago, we'll get into this a lot deeper in a moment, the reason why I was okay with Superman coming back is just because so much story. That's my point. Not just emotional weight, but story in just 3 episodes had transpired that it felt like I was surprised that just 3 episodes had gone by, because in today's television world, the amount of story that we got in 3 episodes in any other TV show, just point to your favorite Netflix show or Amazon show. The amount of story they covered in 3 episodes would have been probably covered in any other show. It probably would have taken them 6 or 7 episodes to do.
Minimum, if not more, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Mike. What were your feelings about how quickly they did bring him back? Do you think they brought him back maybe 1 episode too soon?
I think they could have waited to the next episode to officially bring him back. However, I don't feel cheated because of the reasons that I mentioned.
Okay.
But also, even though they gave us Superman, they still maintained the emotional weight because of the sacrifice of General Lane.
Yeah.
If they didn't sacrifice General Lane, I probably would have felt cheated.
And it wasn't a wasted cheat to sacrifice the character either, because it, by story purposes, General Lane's sacrifice was probably one of the coolest beats for the Kent's story as a family in general.
That I didn't anticipate, honestly. As a Superman fan and someone that knows these stories, right, I knew what was coming somehow.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't know how they were going to execute it, but I knew something was going to happen. But when that particular story beat went down, I immediately assumed, did he inject something that's going to give him some kind of power to
like
be able
to X-Kryptonite or something?
Yeah, to be able to fight. I mean, they talked about it, but, my memory was foggy from the last season kind of thing. And then it caught me off guard, but in a pleasant way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the interesting strategy that this show continues to show. They continue to flex those strategic muscles because none of this is predictable, even though we may say things that eventually aligns with the show. As our listeners know at this point, we're 4 seasons in and we will say something and then the next episode they tend to do it. But even though we are in sync with the show, it still is surprising in how those specifics come about. So even though General Lane died, I feel like a lot of us felt like, okay, well, General Lane's safe now because he survived.
Mm-hmm.
He survived the gunshot wound. He saved the day. He escaped. Great. This character is now in safe territory. There's no way they're going to put this character back in harm's way after he survived. Nope.
And I would even add to your point about the emotional weight of it. It wasn't just the loss of General Lane. It was also watching Jordan go through his paces of finding out about the phone call because Lex played it for him.
Well, the beautiful thing about Jordan in this episode is like we are seeing essentially the fall of Jordan, but it's because of his own insecurities that,
of course, since
season 1, we've been introduced to the fact that Jordan is a very insecure person.
Yeah.
And that is his one quote unquote kryptonite.
And to have bingo and to have that phone call from his mother making an absolutely impossible choice and just having to make a choice, and then him always being or feeling that he's playing second fiddle to Jonathan anyways, and then to ultimately have Jonathan find his powers, which was like a nice bookend since season 1. That's what they kind of led you to believe, is that Jonathan had the powers.
Yeah.
So now it's like a double whammy for this poor kid who's just been beat up left and right emotionally.
Because think about it. He failed to actually save his dad because Lex crushes the heart, which was still one of my favorite.
Crazy.
It's sad.
Coolest scene.
It's sad to say he failed. I know we keep saying that, and that is the accurate way to describe it. But at the same time, he is a kid.
That's what. That's the thing that we brought up in the last episode, Mike. Is like they have done a great job in showing Jordan in a light where we understand that he fails, because at the end of the day, Jordan is still a kid. And on top of that, just like what me and you talked about, they've hinted at that Jordan has his own mental insecurities that he's dealt with in season 1.
Yeah.
And like for him to all of a sudden lose his dad, then face Lex back up, and even though he has all the powers in the world that he could probably crush Lex physically, he still backs down because he's still that kid that's afraid of, realizes there's a big bad boogeyman that's bigger than him.
And he could have, and you have to admire him as a character for not just embracing the powers that he has and just turning bad, because he absolutely could have done that. But to your point, we got to remind ourselves he is a kid. He's a teenage kid. Those insecurities, and he's making a lot of emotional decisions and always had. He's a very emotional kid to begin with, but right now he's under extreme duress.
And now even more so because like his grandfather's dead now.
Yeah, he was close to him.
He was close to his grandfather.
Well, so if you look back to the very beginning of this show, they had introduced Jordan as a person who I believe was on the spectrum.
Yeah.
That was what they were implying.
Yeah.
So just because you gain superpower doesn't mean suddenly you are healed.
You have super spectrum.
Oh, shit. What super Asperger's.
Yeah.
I think my stepdad, I think, has that. But the powers, and I do like that they're going back and addressing this, because I feel like it would be, I know this is a superhero show, but it's a superhero show grounded in a reality similar to ours. These are people who go through very real human problems.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it would be a positive message to say, oh, you're on the spectrum, just gain some power.
And you get rid of it.
And you get rid of it. What they're doing now, originally I thought maybe they're trying to prepare him to be somewhat of a villain. I don't think that's the case. After watching episode 3 and 4, it feels more like they're doing what they probably, I don't want to say they should have done. They're doing the responsible thing as writers now, and I feel like they're giving Jordan a chance to mature without the Band-Aid of having superpowers. And I feel like a part of that Jordan's aware of as a character. He realizes that at first, in episode 3, he was understandably hurt. Yeah. Hearing the message, no matter what the context is, it's hard to believe that anyone wouldn't be hurt by hearing something like that. So it's understandable how the writers are having him react. But rather than going in a direction where he's pouting and brooding, which is what I thought they were going to do with him, he's actually thinking. He's actually being introspective. He actually feels guilty to a degree for what happened, but through that guilt, he finally saw his character flaws.
He's reflecting.
There you go.
He's reflecting on everything that's happened, and in very short order, at least to some degree, he's processed it.
Yeah.
Such that he was willing to essentially forgive Jonathan in a way. And pass the mantle of the costume, which, God, I hope he picks something different.
Well, because also I love that. I
don't like
that.
the goggles.
I don't like the goggles.
No, I don't like the goggles.
But I do like that, in essence, this whole season, the relationship between him and his brother has always been Jonathan is watching over Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Even without powers, Jonathan still watches over his brother.
Protected and nurtured, because he understood for probably a very early age that he was weaker, maybe not necessarily physically, but certainly possible, but just weaker in character and resilience.
Yeah. And like in doing so, it's really cool seeing Jordan not take that route where, I'm just like what you said, Mike, just brood in the corner and become this villain that everyone thinks that that he's going to become. Instead, he basically makes the decision that no, you deserve to wear this more than I do because you're ready.
David, do you think what they're trying to say, are they trying to suggest that Jonathan Kent is the real Superboy because he got all the same powers? And if you look at how they have portrayed him since, well, for a very long time, but specifically in this season so far, he is encompassing a lot of Clarkisms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are they trying to say that this is the real Superboy? Now, they're not leaving Jordan
No.
out to pasture. they're not going to put a bullet in the back of his head and say
take
his
it behind the barn like
his
old
story
Yeller.
his story's now over. That's not what they're saying. I feel like they're going to do something different with him now.
Yeah.
But are they trying to realign Jonathan Kent with source material?
I think so, just because when you actually take a look at Jonathan's story up to this point, out of the two brothers, Jonathan's the one that actually has matured the most. He's made bad decisions, yeah, but if you think about it,
But he's headstrong.
he's headstrong, and like
That's his mother.
that's part of who he is. And that's what makes him, I don't want to say better than Jordan, but it makes him basically
I think it might.
it makes him more Superman-ish.
I think that's the point. I think he has the best qualities of both of his parents.
Both of his parents, yeah.
Yep, and arguably, Jordan got the worst qualities of
Yeah.
both. Because
It's
let's
good- yeah.
face it, Clark's not perfect.
Yeah, Clark's not perfect.
But I think Jordan got the worst characteristics of the two of them for whatever reason.
Well, if you think about it, because like the story so far between the two brothers, when it comes to their maturity, Jordan has gotten the powers, and in a lot of ways, in all the seasons up to this point, he's always portrayed it as he doesn't see it like his dad, where it's like a responsibility. He's doing it because it makes him feel good, and he likes the attention.
It's about him.
It's about
it's
him.
about him.
Jonathan, his story has always been about, it doesn't matter if he doesn't have the powers, he can still make a difference
Exactly.
regardless of
Yes.
the powers.
You're right, because if you go back, I can't remember season 1 as clear as I remember season 2 and season 3. So I can only speak on season 2, season 3, and what we're seeing here in season 4. Jonathan Kent has now, over a dozen times, has said throughout the last 3 seasons, I just want to help where I'm needed.
Where I'm needed.
I just want to help. So it was never about the power. It was
Yeah.
about how can I be of assistance.
Maybe Jordan becomes the man in the chair.
Could.
Like a Felicity.
Not yeah, okay. I'll go with that. Okay, fair.
I think they're going to do something. Is there anything from comic books that you can remotely say he could be? Because during our last discussion that you missed, Steve, David and I were saying that perhaps they're going to do what Helbing had originally conceived for these two characters. If you remember, prior to season 1, he had said that this is his version of the Super Sons, which the Super Sons are Robin
Damian Wayne.
and Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent. So if this is his version of the Wait, did I just say the Super Twin?
Sons.
The Super Sons. The Super Sons, then Jordan may fall into that loner black sheep role that Damian Wayne is.
And it's possible.
At least versions of Damian Wayne. I know not all versions of him
yeah.
are that, but
I can.
the Super Sons, he's a bit of an asshole, right, Dave?
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's kind of an outsider, a little bit of, he broods.
The
He's a little-
the funny part is, it's interesting because the dynamic they could have actually had is just like that. Is one son's very broody, and you'd think that that's Jordan.
I think that is Jordan.
But the problem is, in the Super Son dynamic, Damian is actually kind of like the older brother,
Right.
To Jonathan. He's the one he's the realist.
Well, we do know that this show tends to take those sources of inspiration
Yeah,
and they adapt it in a way that we're all like, oh, that does work, but it's also different.
yeah.
So interesting. As you guys are talking about this, I did a quick search on something, and from 1 year ago, there's a Reddit thread where somebody says, I'm starting to think Jordan will be the final villain of the show.
Oh yeah, everyone's been thinking about that.
Yeah,
And-
we had floated that idea during our last discussion. We had
Okay.
said perhaps that's what they're doing. I don't think they'll do it because
Because of what we just saw.
yeah, right. And also, Steve, I actually want to get your opinion on this. I asked David the same thing during the last discussion. Can you have a show end that way and still end how a Superman series should
Hopeful.
end? Yeah, right. Can it? Can it end hopeful and optimistic while also leading Jordan down a dark path?
Unless there's a redemption path for him, depending on how many episodes we get out of this season.
We got 10.
We get 10. they are going to have to speed roll this thing at this point because we're 4 deep. And It
Yeah.
only gives us 6 to deal with Lex. Whatever's going to happen with Clark, and if
What
he's going to
happens
have
with
to,
Doomsday?
yeah, we don't know where the hell Doomsday went.
He's eating random
People.
people, I guess, in the subway.
Yeah, so
And Lex thinks of him as a sweet little animal, a little
But-
pet.
But that being said, every season we've talked about they got a lot of strings to tie
Oh,
up,
yeah.
And they do it.
and they do it. So if they threw a curveball, you know,
And don't forget, Steve, the one thing that hasn't been also discussed too is like me and Mike talked about is the hint of Brainiac possibly in the
there was a
series.
little hint at one point, but I don't see them going that route. But
Todd Helbing said they were.
what?
Yeah.
I
Todd Helbing said-
believe I covered that. Did I mention that during our
Yeah,
last
you
discussion?
did. That's why we were talking about how there's so much that they have to cover. How are they going to actually throw in? Okay, you got Lex, you got Doomsday, and then now Todd Helbig confirms that basically.
Okay, so Todd Helbing calls Amanda's comment intentional, telling TV Line that there will be more to come with Brainiac in future episodes.
Yeah.
But we just but we just don't have the time to be adding. I mean, I'm gonna trust them. I'm gonna trust them.
You gotta trust the process.
You literally sound like me last week.
Yeah.
I said we don't have the time for this, but you know what? They have proven me wrong time and time again.
That's
Yeah.
why. That's why we were discussing, Steve, last episode. Was like Brainiac is the big bad in the end because Luther's story ties, I think, solely to Lois.
Well, and also obviously he'll have something to do with Brainiac.
But what version of Brainiac? Because if I don't get the metal version, the robot
Version.
I don't remember all the various versions. I remember
God,
there was
there's so many.
There's
wasn't
so
there
many.
an artificial intelligence version?
There's an
From
artificial
space.
intelligence.
That's
Are
the
they all from
robot?
spa-
That's
not
the
all of
robot
them.
version I like.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my favorite version.
Yeah.
He's the conqueror, right? The
He's the
world
conqueror.
destroyer.
Yeah.
Like I like that version.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's the best in my opinion. But you know, there's still some time here. We got our John Henry Irons Superman, right?
Yes.
We got our Superboy now. I think our proper Superboy.
Proper Superboy.
And if you can get rid of them silly goggles, maybe get some good cool aviators on, and
Get the leather
shit.
jacket.
You know
need
what,
the leather
Steve?
he's got
jacket.
the leather jacket.
That's true. He does have the leather jacket.
What's up?
Steve, you just
Yeah.
okay. So I totally forgot that they have mirrored. I don't know why you needed to remind me, but I just totally forgot. They've been mirroring a lot of the Death of Superman storylines.
Oh, yeah,
we've been
dude.
talking about this. Okay, so if that's
Eradicators
if
showed
that's
up.
the case, then we also know that Lex has a connection to Superboy.
Yeah.
And if Jordan is the Superboy that he keeps calling Superboy, there might end up being something more there between the two of them.
All the reign of the Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, perhaps he won't be a villain, just like I do not believe the Superboy that had that relationship with Lex. He wasn't a villain. He was I wouldn't even say he was morally compromised. He was a more complicated human version of Superman, correct? If memory serves me correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, because he was half Lex, half Superman.
Yeah.
So if they're using that,
he's
then we very well may end up seeing a lot more
and
between the two of them.
And what if? Because keep me honest here, because my memory's a little foggy on the last couple of seasons. It's been too long. What if the Brainiac isn't the Brainiac that we think, but it's the cyborg Superman mesh? What if it's a Brainiac Superman combo?
I forgot.
Could be. I mean, like, you got to remember that they also brought in, they've already covered some of the major characters in Death of Superman. They have Steel. They had Doomsday. They had the Eradicator.
Yep.
They can't go intergalactic though, because they haven't done it yet.
Well, they
And
went and fought in space, and I was really
fought in
I
space.
meant like a foe that comes from.
right. But what I'm saying is, again, Lex is so cunning and tricksy in this thing,
Yeah.
and he made that comment. What if he's been cooking this thing up, and he had Superman's heart.
Yeah.
He has Superman's DNA.
And he has the technology.
And he
he has
has
the
the technology.
Yeah.
He could build a cyborg Superman.
That's what I think is going to happen. I think they're going to mix various
stories.
Yeah, because that's what they've been doing.
That's what they've been doing. You heard it here first, kids.
Yeah, I really like what they've done with these last episodes. One of the things, we talked about this at the top of the show, but I want to talk about it a little more in depth. Lois's performance is something we've continued. Betsy Tulloch
Yeah.
is the actor that plays Lois, and we have, since day one, have just continually said how she is the heart of this show.
Mm-hmm.
It's her performance. Not that the actor that plays Superman isn't good. He is very good.
Very good.
But Betsy Tulloch is just on a whole other level, and a lot of it has to do with the writing. And that scene in episode 3 was so powerful, and I love that they have found numerous moments now in nearly every episode this season to give us that one intense moment. They did it in episode 2 when Lex stepped on Superman's heart, and Jordan does that blood-curdling scream.
Yeah.
That is just sheer horror and emotional, like, breakdown. Mm-hmm. Then we had it with Lois's character when General Lane gets his neck broke.
Which
was brutal.
And a part of me had hoped that we heard her scream. But it was more effective over cranking the camera, giving us that slow motion effect, cutting the sound, giving us that reverb, atmospheric sound instead, and just having the silence of her mouth open, and you get the sense that she's screaming. You see the intensity. So good.
That's the
powerful.
Godfather scream. It's the Godfather scream.
It's so good.
much more effective, I would think.
She mentioned in an interview, Betsy Tulloch, she said, when we shot that exterior scene at the DOD, I almost threw up in my mouth. She says, the reality is that when you're in it as an actor and you pray for those moments where all of Betsy or Bitsy is gone herself, and it's all Lois. You have no idea what you're going to do, and it's kind of hard to rein it in once you get going.
Right.
Yeah.
So she said she was so emotionally invested in the scene that when she screamed, it was just so emotionally tense that it made her sick.
I get it. And you have to imagine, we don't know how the production schedule was shooting all these things, and the amount of emotion that she's gone through, honestly, every season, but this season in particular.
Yeah. She's in therapy after
You're
after
talking
the show's over.
You're talking potentially days, if not weeks, of just emotional roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
Well, think about it, Steve. Like we both said last week when we were talking about this in the studio that it's just so emotionally heavy, emotionally taxing that I can't watch numerous episodes back to back. I need to take a break.
Yes.
So if we as the viewer can't take an hour of such sheer emotion, imagine being that actor, having to work countless days in that state of mind
Working
for numerous
yourself up.
episodes.
Yeah.
Plus, on top of that, we thought her performance last season deserved, award-winning nominations.
But this one,
that story, I thought, oh my God, you can't get any higher emotionally than last season, because like her story of Lois going through cancer as a patient, that was intense. But then you get here, you start off with the death of her husband, and you get that we finally get the death of Superman moment, and then she has to go through the death of her dad, deals with all that, death of her husband again when his heart gets crushed, and it's like, no, I was wrong. Last season was just the tip of the iceberg. This one, she's just ramping it up further and further.
Yeah, if she does not get some kind of Emmy nomination or something, it's going to be a.
We'll give her an award this year.
We'll
nominate her for the first annual Rain Man Digital Bullshit Award.
Bullshit award.
but what she's doing isn't bullshit. This is. She's putting on a performance. It's
you know what, Steve? I don't know how you would feel about this. I know you're very particular about your superhero shows, more so than most people. Mm-hmm. I feel like she is in a very special class of acting when it comes to the acting is acting, but specifically because we're dealing with a superhero IP.
with portrayals of a comic book character.
Yes, she's a part of a very small elite group.
Yeah.
And I would put her in the same category as people like Heath Ledger and Robert Downey Jr. and
Christopher Reeves.
Christopher Reeves was great. I'm talking about those emotionally intense story arcs.
I 100% agree, Mike. There's
And
no shortage of good shows out there in recent years that cover the comic book spectrum. But to your point, or even movies.
And the performances are all good. I'm not saying any of them are bad necessarily.
Right, but there is a small sliver of people that stand out. And I think you nailed it. You got your RDJs, your Heath Ledgers, certainly her in this role. I would even argue some of the stuff that, while it didn't pan favorably for a lot of people, the stuff that Kristen Ritter did on Jessica Jones. That is some deeply impactful, traumatic
especially
stuff.
that first season.
Yeah.
That first season is something else.
Yeah.
So there's just a small bucket of people that I would say really hit a lot of notes that you just don't see. And that's okay. They don't all have to be like that, right? You got to have some levity and some fun and whatnot. But
when you get a performance like this, you do feel, as a fan, you feel a little slighted for them, because how do these performances just not get acknowledged?
it's unfortunate because she's up there.
Yeah. Okay, so what else transpired? We covered the death of General Lane, Jordan, Jonathan. Oh, Irons. Irons and Nat. Mm-hmm. So we weren't given a lot, but enough to remind us that they are still a part of the show.
Yeah, that they exist.
And I do want to say that I am very happy that these actors cared enough about this show. It goes to show you the type of dynamic on that set, because none of them were given full contracts.
Yeah.
The only people given full contracts to come back were the family itself, the Superman family, those 4 actors.
They could have told them to pound sand. We're done.
I expected them to do that. So the fact that they all came back for those guest spots, essentially, which is a huge pay cut.
Yeah.
They're still coming back because they care about those performances. And it wouldn't feel right if we didn't touch on these various moments. We have Jeremy Irons. We have Nat. They're setting them up, or have officially set them up, to be an integral part of the DOD, especially now that General Lane is gone. But the question mark is, what's going to happen to them? Will they... We do need to have more character deaths. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen in a show like this.
It has to. Again, kind of back to your earlier point about how do we end on a high note. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised, especially if they bring in, this Superman Brainiac hybrid hypothesis. But you're going to deal with Lex, and if we get a proper Lex suit, like a proper Lex suit, but they're going to have. It's going to end up being almost like an Infinity War Endgame kind of thing. In my opinion, you're going to have all of them band together. They're all going to have to come together, including both Kent boys. And maybe it's not that Jonathan turns bad. Jordan turns bad. I think you're going to see a lot of character deaths, but there's going to have to be something that comes out of it that's hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
That's why I was like... I mentioned this to Mike off air about how... At this point, I honestly wouldn't be surprised to see Irons die in the end, because the just like what you were alluding to, Steve, you have to have at least that one more character death.
I don't think it's going to be one. I think it's going to be several on both sides. I could be wrong. I just feel like there's going to have to be a few that happen, and we're going to have a couple episodes to recover from it. Because if there's anything that this entire series has been from day one, it's been emotional, like we've been saying. Yeah. And so you got to leave on a high note.
You got to leave a high note.
But you also have a few more gut punches, I think, that they can get in there.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Steel being killed, let's say it happens. It would only work if they find a way to make things okay for Nat. You can't end a series like this down for one of your main characters.
Yeah.
Nat entered this show in a state of existential despair because of losing her world and her mother. And it would feel weird if the writers were to end it the same way she entered the show.
And now she's lost her pseudo grandfather.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the only way I would be okay with Steele dying, and if he does die, it has to be in the ultimate sacrifice type of way. If he does die, then it has to be said in the show that she is no longer just a happenstance person who might have been this daughter of Lois Lane in another reality.
You're reading my mind. You're reading my mind.
She has to be an officially
Adopted.
Like Lois needs to say, you know what, you are my daughter.
You're part of the family.
These are your brothers.
And again, and if Jordan dies,
yeah,
now you have her come into the family. It can heal the wounds potentially for all involved. You just become a new family. It's like a Brady Bunch, but different.
That's
who
what
has
we're thinking
the
about.
curls like their mother.
Right.
So stupid. Which one's the kid toucher?
Whoa.
Which one's the
whoa.
kid-
Wasn't Greg Brady a kid toucher?
I thought it was the dad.
I thought it was the dad.
Isn't that Greg Brady? I don't.
No.
Oh, which one's?
Greg Brady's the oldest brother.
Yeah,
dude.
Greg Beatty's the oldest.
I hated the Brady Bunch. It was the first show I ever hate watched because there was nothing on TV except it because we only had 3 channels growing up. I had to watch the Brady Bunch.
And Gilligan.
And Gilligan's Island.
Yes. And Saved by the Bell right afterwards. So, all right. So we're on the same page. If Irons is taken out, then Nat has to have a very specific end to her story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We're on the same page.
Okay, now when it comes to Christy and Kyle, now
He needs to die.
Oh, your favorite character, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes. We gotta talk about that.
Stop saying that. Okay?
I was going to say it earlier. Kyle needs to die.
I do know why I hate him.
No, Kyle needs to live.
And I might have said this during our last discussion. The reason why he irritates me, even though I care about I do like the character. I don't want to say I hate. I do like him. But the reason why he irritates me and I have such a love-hate relationship with him is because his loser mentality reminds me of myself.
I thought you were going to say because he looks like he combed his hair with a pork chop every fucking episode.
Dude, Homeboy has aged so much in 4 years.
Yeah.
What the fuck happened to him in 4 years,
Bro,
dude?
he got divorced.
He got divorced. He lost his family.
He lost his family. He knocked this broad up. She ditched him.
Those are all in-story things. I'm talking about in real life. The actor himself looks like he just was president for the last 4 years.
Maybe in real life he lost his wife, he lost his family, knocked up some chick.
Well, Mike, he's probably living the character. You know.
I mean, was
Yeah.
it just me, or did he look like completely like a mess?
He
did.
he looked aged. He looked like he had been on some benders.
He's probably living like a depressed life, going from Hottie Big Titty McGee to Chrissy Bebeppo, or whatever her name is. What's her name? Beppo?
Yeah, Chrissy
Chrissy-
Beppo.
Come on, you're going from
Beppo.
Lana Lane to Beppo? Come on. That's enough to make anyone want to commit suicide.
Speaking of, and since I wasn't here for the first 2 episodes you guys reviewed, I was a little bummed when in the first couple episodes they mentioned after Clark died, after Superman died, that Lana. It seemed to me Lana never slept with him.
Yeah, I was a little bummed.
A little bummed about that.
We know that's a lie, dude. He was just trying to hold on to his Boy Scout credibility. Like Clark's like, I never had sex before. Basically, that's what he was saying.
Till
I'm like,
Lois.
bullshit, bullshit.
I'm a virgin.
Yeah, you banged the hell out of Lana, and then you flew around the world backwards to reverse it.
To reverse time.
You're not a virgin it's because you reverse time.
Right.
If you have the memory, then it's
If
there.
you're the only one that has the memory, it's fine. It's a secret.
Isn't that like a weird, like super date rape though?
No, because it never
It
happened.
never happened.
That's
though,
my
Steve.
point. So Mickeys make things not happen.
No, it
No,
actually physically
it actually
happens.
happens, Steve.
If you're messing
Oh.
with space time, it doesn't happen.
Okay. I don't know. I still think it's a little.
I think that sounds like an ethical philosophical book we need to write as a group.
Yeah, it seems a little.
Is it
time
rape
travel
if time travel is
is
involved?
I don't feel comfortable about
If
all
no
of
one
it.
remembers except for you,
I don't feel
is it rape?
I feel dirty like Kyle.
All right, so Kyle's story, it needed to be done. I don't feel like we're going to get much more
I don't think it's done, man.
Oh no, come
I mean,
on.
they're not done yet because remember, Chrissy just left him at the altar, basically.
Well, but it
There's
also,
your hope.
But
There's
their
your
story
hope.
also kind of came to an end. It was we kind of understand now where they are. They're not ready to get married, but they are in it for the long haul. They both care about each other, and that was the ultimate resolve between the two of those characters. So
and Kyle has to show that he's not a screw up now.
well, I don't think we need another season of that. I feel like if we ended on that note, certainly there could be other moments where they come and go through the episode, but I think the bulk of their story is done.
Mike, what will you do?
That was the point of the fourth episode. Was it the fourth episode?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Just
will
to
you do
bring
if
it
he-
all.
If
to
he
an
goes
end.
back to if he goes back to Lana and she takes him back,
I'll congratulate him.
it's just how.
I
and so now-
congratulate you, sir.
So now he's a deadbeat dad
×2.
×2. You know who they didn't bring back is the little sister
Yes, they
that was.
did. I started laughing. She was.
Was she in the background?
Yes.
Yeah, she was in the background.
That's why.
Wait, well, was it really her, or did they
Yes.
just they
No.
just do like a cardboard cutout and put it out of focus?
And they still didn't acknowledge her. That was the sad part.
Yes, that's why I was laughing so hard because I figured, Steve, that's the first thing you were going to bring up when you walked into the studio because they did this cutaway to her looking the exact same way, morose as fuck, doesn't have a word to say, has a blank stare.
Dude, it was a cardboard cutout. They're like, okay, we're not paying all these extra people to come back. They're going to be guests. And she didn't bring anything to the table.
Nothing.
Why are we going to spend any more extra
Well,
money?
they didn't give her anything, Steve.
And they didn't give her anything in
They
this
didn't give her
episode either.
anything.
They just imagine being her agent. Like she either has the best agent in the world or the worst agent because either she's only been able to survive in the show this long because her agent's so good or her agent's so shitty that he has never managed to give her more.
Maybe he cut a deal to where she didn't even have to show up. She still got paid, and they went to Kinko's, FedEx Kinko's, and just printed it for him and sent it. You know,
They used that AI technology.
That is probably one of the funniest things about that episode was when they cut to her. I'm like, wait, who the fuck are you? Oh, it's this girl again in the background randomly.
as cardboard as you're acting.
Man. I don't feel bad anymore because she looked like she was grown. That's why you probably didn't recognize her. She looks the same, but she is taller than her sister now.
Yeah.
I
And you know,
didn't even-
she didn't say a damn word.
No,
again.
nope.
Mm.
Oh, you know what? Speaking of chicks, you did send me an Instagram.
I did. I
Like
did.
you're like, I forgot to respond, and I was going to. So, what? Do you mind if I mention it?
I mean, you can mention what the Instagram reel
Oh,
is for
oh,
sure.
okay,
I mean, I basically sent it to Mike, and I said, "What was it, Mike?"
They're all grown up or something like.
she's all grown up, and it was her. What's her name? Navette?
the girl that plays
Yeah.
Nat.
No, not Nat. The girl that
Oh, Neverette.
never has, and the
something
girl that
like
plays
that.
Nat. They were clearly hanging out while producing the episodes.
You
or
know, she's a
whatever.
model.
She is, yeah.
Taylor Buck, the girl that plays Nat.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it. I mean, she's very young, but she is very pretty.
She's
She's,
very pretty.
tall, so it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're like behind the scenes, acting kind of a little scandalous.
Scandal.
Well,
Well,
I shouldn't say
she-
Natalie is. Natalie's in the background, just kind of viving. But Homegirl
Like,
was,
listen, guilty by association.
yeah, she's guilt by association.
Yeah, she got her ears full from her parents, I'm sure, after.
But I'm sure. I mean, it's yeah.
I will say though that the girl that plays Sarah Cushing, whatever her name is, I'm gonna look it up so we know because I can't believe we don't even remember this. She has done that for the last couple years. Remember, I think we talked about it that she posts some pretty risque posts to Instagram, and we said not to look at it because let's not even mention it because she was.
But
I think she just turned 18, and we're like, this is so creepy and uncomfortable.
yeah,
right
but
now.
now she's like 22.
Yeah, but we're also we're
like half
Steve,
her age.
we didn't stop aging when she started aging. So
Hey, we don't need to
kinda
talk
the same
about
thing.
our age. Come on.
yeah. You know what? I think that
Indy is her first name. Indy Navarrete. I don't know how
Yeah.
to say her last name. I'm butchering it. I don't know how to say it, but she was born in 2001, so she's 23 years old and from Tucson, Arizona.
Oh yeah, that I remember that. We talked about that. Okay, so the last bit to cover would be the ending of the 4th episode that basically has Superman reintroducing himself to the world. That wasn't the intent, but for whatever reason, he had to go save his son, and someone found out.
Yeah.
And the episode ended with numerous text messages, or I should say notifications from different news outlets, I believe is what it was, that was reporting that Superman's back.
Mm-hmm.
So that means the jig is up. Lex knows, and I'm sure the 5th
That's the big
episode
thing.
is going to be a very suspenseful, dangerous episode, because if Lex finds out that not only is Clark back, but both of his sons are now supers,
Oh, he'll be really upset.
he's going to have a lot to confront. But he still has Doomsday. So what's going to happen is Doomsday, and I want to get your thoughts on this specifically, Steve, because I already asked David for his thoughts on this. Will Doomsday, because of how this specific Doomsday was created, made from a good, just a different version, but still a good Superman, is how this Doomsday was created. Will there be a redemption? And the reason why I'm asking this question again, even though it was asked last episode, is because Doomsday took a long glance at Lois.
Yeah.
He did, and you could tell there was
A
kind of
connection there.
a connection.
Even with her, there was sympathy for
there
him.
was sympathy, a sense of remorse. He realized who she was, or recognized who she was. He's still in there.
Do
Yeah.
we want that? Do we want a redemption? Would we be okay with it?
I mean, I don't want to say okay or not okay.
I mean, from what you want from a story, would you be okay if they found? I mean, obviously we know pretty much everything. I don't think there's anything they've ended up doing at any season so far where we're like, oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
They've pretty much sold us on nearly every single thing they have pulled out of their ass.
I mean, I would be okay with a redemption arc for the character of Bizarro Superman turned Doomsday. But I also think if we don't get one, there's still a beauty in being able to empathize and sympathize with that character, knowing that it wasn't him at the end of the day. It was everything Lex was.
it was the pain.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the pain
The
and
drugs.
and the drugs and just everything pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. And I think there's still a good lesson in that.
Yeah, I do like that thought. That I feel like would be better. We don't need, when I say redemption, I don't think we need to take, we only have 10 episodes. We don't have time
Yeah.
to dedicate an arc, a redemption arc to Doomsday. But there can be a moment. There could be that Darth Vader moment at the end of Return of the Jedi when he looks at Palpatine. Then he looks at Luke. He looks at Palpatine. He looks at Luke. And then he makes the right decision. If we had a moment like that, that's really all we would need. We don't
Yeah.
need anything that drags out unnecessary
I would agree.
storylines.
He could be the one that takes out either Lex
Or Brainiac.
or Evil Jordan. You know,
Evil Jordan.
He's yeah. All right. So we're pretty much done. We've covered all of the major aspects of the episode. Steve, why don't you give me your final thoughts and your score?
you want me to score them separately
You know
or
what?
combined?
Give me, yeah, you know what? Combined for 3 and 4.
I mean, I'll be honest. All 4 episodes for me have been emotionally taxing for a lot of different reasons.
What would you give the first 2 since you weren't here? Why don't you start with that?
Oh gosh, honestly, I would probably, with a broad brushstroke of all 4, rate them all around the same, and probably somewhere. I don't want to just off the cuff go boom, 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 but I would say anywhere between 88 and 90 for all of them for me.
Okay.
And it's just because the emotional aspects, while taxing and very much a roller coaster. Everything worked. Everything made sense. The heart thing, didn't see that coming.
Oh yeah.
Right? Didn't see that coming.
Isn't that so important in this day and age of just so much television, not to see something coming and to be actually surprised?
Yeah, and was hopeful that Jordan was actually going to get out with it, and then to be as crushed as a viewer as he was as a son.
Yeah.
I mean, and Lois, Bitsy's performance and General Lane's sacrifice and just on and on and on. It's been so taxing, and you kind of have to be somewhat emotionally unavailable or closed off if you're not sitting there with at least a little bit of tears in your eyes on some of these episodes.
I would agree. You're not human.
You're not human.
If this isn't connecting with you at an emotional level.
Yeah, even like you said earlier, Mike, the last season, the cancer stuff last season is its own thing that I think a lot of people can connect with if you've known anybody that's gone through it. Now, I've never known anybody that's gone through having their heart stomped on the ground, but I can still relate to the emotional impact that Jordan went through, right? So for me, we've always said it's about family. It's not about Superman. Like, at the end of the day, this is about family and the things that family go through, and it just happens to be Superman's the backdrop.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm thrilled with where we're at four episodes in, versus previous seasons where it's not that we didn't trust. It's just we're like, well,
We're
let's cautiously optimistic.
Have you noticed that this season, even though the other seasons have been so great, we love them, this season has a whole different vibe, and that a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is its final season. And usually when you have serialized television moving to its final season, they usually try to focus just on the important, the substance, and they do away with some of the more, I guess you can say, the episodic forms, some of the filler aspects. Also, they only have 10 episodes. They have removed excess, so they only have what's most important, and because of that, you're just covering so much ground.
So if I do them individually, Mike, I would say
David gave it 100% the first two episodes.
the first two episodes.
I gave it a 97% the first
My
two episodes.
reasoning was, Steve, for 100 for the first two was because they did something that every Superman fan up to this date have been saying cannot be done, which was tell the death of Superman storyline and not make it mundane. They actually did it better than the source material in a lot of ways.
So he died at the end of the first one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do
All right.
got to close out.
Okay,
though, so.
okay. So I'm reneging what I said. So I'm gonna say 96 on the first episode.
All right.
On the second episode, I'm gonna give it a 95. On the third episode, that's my 100.
Third episode.
That's my 100. And on the fourth episode, I'm going to go a little bit lower and give it like a 92.
The fourth episode is probably the weakest of the bunch so far.
yeah.
It's
so
not
far.
bad. I'm
not
just
bad,
saying
but-
relative to what we saw, but the reason for me number 3 is the highest is just because
Did
of
you say
all
92 for the fourth?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just all the emotion.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Just give me your score. We got to close out.
Sorry about that.
My
all
score
right.
for that is, for episode 3 and 4 up to this point, is a 94. I think it's really good. They're still on good ground with the story. Just like you said, I feel that episode 4 is the weakest so far, but it's also because it's a setup for episode 5.
Yeah, it's a bridge.
And I've seen trailers for episode 5, and I'm like super psyched, especially when you have the face-off between Lex and Clark.
So 94%? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
94.
Okay. And I will give these episodes combined score of 95%. I can't complain. I love this show. The only thing I can complain about is that it's ending. It's a shame that we finally get something really good for us Superman fans, and it's canceled.
It's canceled.
Because for some reason we can't have a television Superman and a movie Superman at the same time.
You're not allowed to have nice things.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.